All right, let's call this meeting to order. Thank you so much for coming today. Our agenda is quite full, so let's start. But first, a few housekeeping issues. First of all, when you wish to speak, make sure that you press the button for the microphone so that everybody can hear you, especially those that are listening to the live stream. Don't forget to press the button to turn it off when you're not addressing the public. There are two major exits, one in that direction, one just in the side, just by the way. Restrooms are available off the main hallway across the boardroom. It's in that direction. Lunch. Please place your money in the envelope provided. Somebody will pick it up. And keep the receipt, the yellow little slit, so that you may be reimbursed. Please note that the coordinating board does not reimburse your expenses, but they're interested in knowing how much all this costs. So there's an actual form to please fill out, which is travel expenses. And so it's important for them to keep up how much exactly is these meetings cost. We do have call-in members. If you're there, Ashley Ferguson from UTA.
Yes, I'm on the line. Thank you.
All right, welcome. And Joshua Villalobos from El Paso.
Yes, I'm also online. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Please mute your phones when you're not speaking and identify yourself when you do wish to speak. Finally, the Rex Peeble, the assistant commissioner, suddenly died. Rex was maybe not a member, but was often in these meetings, and so we're saddened by this news. But because of that, there's going to be some redistribution of tasks and reorganization of staff. James Goldman, who, thank you for coming, is taking on other responsibilities. And Reynold Cornelius will be sitting in. Rebecca Leslie will continue to coordinate the committee activities. Okay, I'd like to also introduce new members. Michael Endy from Weatherford College is returning. Thank you for your service. Amber Kelly is being reappointed, so nice to see you again. New members, Christopher Nelson and Martha Robertson. Okay. Also returning is Genevieve Di Cesaro. Hi there. And two new members also, Jennifer Whitfield from A&M and Kenneth Wink. Welcome aboard. The next item on the agenda is the election of a co-chair. We try to have two chairs, one representing universities and one representing community and state colleges. So now we are looking to elect a co-chair that would represent community and technical colleges. Obviously, we prefer somebody that has a little bit experience. If you're completely new, that would be fine, but it's possibly preferable to wait 1 year. Anybody interested? Ooh, we have a nomination. Thank you. Okay, do I have a let's pass this to a vote, I guess. Okay. All in favor of Michael? All right. Very good. Thank you. Right now, you can remain where you are and be happy. And we'll reorganize the table into chairing once for the spring meeting. Excellent. Okay, the agenda item 4 is to look at the minutes of the last meeting, which was on May 7th. You have in front of you a copy of the minutes, if you want to take a few moments to evaluate that.
While you're reading the minutes, Valerie's going to come by and pick up your lunch money.
Okay, I think everybody had a chance to browse through the minutes. Did we see anything that needs to be amended? Do I have a motion to approve? Thank you. Item minutes are approved. Yeah,
Also date.
yeah. The next item on the agenda is to update the activities of the TCC-NS. John Spencer, you have an idea?
Sure. Really, it's not a lot's changed. I will tell you, though, that University of Texas at Austin, who hosts our server for the TCNS project, has done some reorganization of the people that were over the programming for that and kind of have made it more a part of their overall IS department, their IT department. And so we've been working with some new programmers to make sure that things are up and running and going smoothly. So we have different main points of contact with that. The thing that we are working on and the project that's moving forward right now we have long had a way to identify courses that institutions host in their TCCNS database as those courses that are in their core or not in their core. And we're working with the programmers now to say, is there a way that when we look at that crosswalk or that comparison of schools, can we indicate which core class and which component area is listed as the institutions? I think that'd give us some meaningful data as a state to kind of look at what is really more common across all institutions as, you know, courses that are in the core. But I think it would help students and it would help people that use TCCNS in their transcript evaluation and that kind of stuff. And we will be presenting at TACRO this year, and then we're in the spring going to try to have some of our leadership present at some of the counseling and advising conferences. So,
Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda is to discuss the learning outcome projects process. Rebecca, you have update.
Okay, I'm just going to speak to the process in general. For those of you who have been on the committee or returning, you're aware that we do this in the fall, bring these courses to you in the fall. And if you look on your agenda materials, this has been going on since 2011. It started in 2010 with tuning, with the engineering courses, and then we moved it on into general education as well. So this is this year for 2019, we took on drama, arts, and a couple of history courses. And this is a research-driven process. Before the faculty come to revise courses, they do research. They are given assignments to collect syllabi. And they collect syllabi, and we house them so that they are available to everyone who participates in the work group. So if someone has to collect 6 syllabi, and there's 10 people on the committee, you'll have a library of 60 syllabi for those faculty to review before they come to the meeting. That way they have an understanding of what's going on in the field for those particular courses. Once they get to the coordinating board for a face-to-face meeting, and we usually do this all day long. It is a grueling day for those of you. A few of you have served on those committees, and you know that's a grueling day, but a lot of work, good work gets done. The style convention of the ACGM is maintained, and we make sure that the learning outcomes are measurable. They will review, in some cases, the contact hours and the title and the semester credit hours. They will place prerequisites, recommend prerequisites for some courses, and they also have recommended deletions. And once their work is done, we send it to for comment to the chief academic officers at public institutions, the community colleges and the universities, for them to solicit comments from their own faculty. And then they send the comments back to the coordinating board, and the work group looks at those. And the instructions I give them, because they have already done a lot of work, and they've already thought about most of the issues that are brought up in the comments. I say, if this is an improvement, then we'll integrate the comment. But if it's not an improvement to the work you've already done, you don't just because someone makes a comment doesn't mean that you have to change the work that you've already done, because we probably already had that discussion. So then in response to comments, they will make changes if necessary. So what you'll be seeing today is the final product of those work groups, and after these have been out to comment for 30 days. So institutions have had 30 days to give us their comments, and then the work group has reviewed the comments and come back. For institutions, all the topics in the description need to be included in their courses when they teach those courses at community college. You can't pick and choose, oh, I'll cover this topic, but I won't cover them. You have to, the expectation is that the community college will cover all those topics. And then the learning outcomes also need to be covered and assessed by the community college. Now, if there is some kind of special local need, like your partner university has something that you want to embed in your course, that's allowed. But you cannot change the nature of the course, and you still have to cover everything that's in the ACGM. And the learning outcomes represent the minimum standards. And then as far as assessment, we don't prescribe that. That's up to the institution how you do that. So that's basically the process. And then we bring that work to you for a final review. But remember that these are recommendations from the discipline. These are faculty in the discipline who teach these courses making these recommendations, and that the committees are made up of universities and community college working to align the courses to benefit students. So that's basically our process.
Thank you. So next is to look at some of the recommendations by these work groups. There's actually 3. The first one concerns select courses in the arts. Agenda item number 7. If you would like to take a few minutes to go over them, and then we can discuss. To help this along, I think Rebecca can go through the details.
Okay, the arts, they met on July 31st, and they were the work group that had the most courses. All of these courses are included in the field of study. There were 5 community colleges and 4 universities working on this. And then we had 5 institutions that made some comments. Most of the comments were very general, minor wordsmithing, and then the work group went through them and did make 1 or 2 changes, but nothing really significant except for maybe metal smithing, or metal art, where they decided to go with metals in general as opposed to noble metals. This is how they will appear in the ACGM. There are some titles that have parenthetical information to the side of those. If it's a title change, that only appears once, but otherwise, if it's a content clarification, those will probably stay in there. That's usual with the ACGM. But the overall feeling about the work that was done based on the comments was approval and general alignment. Felt that this aligned well with what was going forward. There was one comment I'll bring to the attention was that Design 3, the parenthetical clarification there that this would be color theory. The way the course was written before, it was actually being used as a topics course. But then when we looked at what universities were offering, if they have a Design 3, it's color theory. So rather than continue with a course that could be anything, the work group went with providing clarification. And that's how they built the learning outcomes, so that it deals with color theory as opposed to being a sculpture or a ceramics course, an additional course that is already covered in another course. So does anybody have questions for me about the work done with the group?
Just one. Could we revisit the learning outcome numbering of Arts 2316?
Which one?
Arts 2316, Painting 1. We've got learning outcomes 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I will make that correction, thank you.
So I just have a general kind of question regarding Painting 1 and Painting 2. So it's Arts 2316 versus Arts 2317. So in scanning it, I don't see a difference in the learning outcomes for the 2 courses.
These
So-
are skills type courses, and so they build on one another, especially at the sophomore level. You're just kind of building on this. You're learning more, but you're implementing the skills. And because they are skills type courses, the learning outcomes may be the same, just a different level for students.
And that's typical to not specify that different level then in the learning outcomes?
Well, they did give a prerequisite for 2317, meaning that would be your first course, and if you were going to do a more advanced course, you would take the 2317. I think that was the thinking.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion? Sorry.
I don't know if it's on.
You have none?
I have a question about the learning outcomes for 2311 and 2313. Both of the number 5s say demonstrate an appropriate level of professional practice, whereas on the rest of them, they appear to go a little bit more into detail. Is there a reason that they just kind of stopped short there?
It may be that these are more general. I don't recall that there was anything specific, but some of these had, depending upon the medium, I think, would be part of the explanation. I couldn't go beyond that.
I could probably, the other courses that go further involve safety issues, such as wearing safety goggles, such as wearing safety goggles, such as proper disposal and so on, where these are more likely computer-oriented courses, and the study, that really doesn't involve the rest of that. It's just professional practices.
And that is known, I guess that term is known then within those areas?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for explaining that. Do we have a motion to accept these descriptions and outcomes? A second? Thank you. Further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. All right, the motion has been approved. Agenda item 8 is the recommendation and learning outcomes for the work group working on the drama and theater. Rebecca, maybe you want to clarify.
Okay, this group met July the 16th. There were 4 community colleges and 5 universities represented in the group. These also went out to comment. There are 2 new courses being added to the ACGM through the field of study, and we developed those 2 courses, and those are the first 2 listed there as theater design and script analysis. So those are new courses to go into the ACGM. The others were existing courses in the ACGM but had not had learning outcomes or their descriptions revised, and that was done at that time.
Please spend a few minutes to look at these. Any questions?
I had one question. What was the reason for the deletion, the rationale for deletion of the Acting 3 course?
I think we're going to take that up in another motion right now. We're just, and I will address that.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna have three motions, first of all, by the way, okay? So the first one is to approve the new courses and the outcomes and descriptions, and the new outcomes and description. Do I have a motion to approve these?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any item for discussion? All those in favor, say yes. Okay, the motion is passed. The other motion is to accept the recommended title changes. Rebecca, do you want to have a discussion?
Yes, the work group brought this up themselves. They thought that the titles needed to be changed because they felt that Introduction to Theater made it sound like you were introducing the skills that you might need as a theater major. And if you were doing Introduction to Cinema, maybe the technical aspects of cinema. So they wanted it to be clear that these were actually appreciation, general education type courses, as opposed to being necessarily in the major. And this was the will of the work group.
Thank you. Any questions about these two? Do I have a motion to approve? Thank you. All those in favor? Say yeah. Motion has been approved. The third motion concerning drama classes is the deletion of Acting 3. Rebecca, you have more information?
Okay, this was also the recommendation of the work group. They felt that this is usually taught at the upper division and that it didn't get into the field of study. So those are two strong reasons to consider deletion of this course. So they make that recommendation.
Were there any comments made during the comment period about that course deletion?
No.
Any further discussion about this? Do I have a motion to approve deletion of Acting 3?
I so move.
Second? Thank you. All those in favor, say yeah. That's funny. Motion has been approved. The third project work group concerns history. And Rebecca, you want to say a few words about the process?
Okay, the history field of study was done during the past year, and the African American history course was the only history course that didn't have learning outcomes, so we took this one up. The work group was made up of 4 community colleges and 5 universities, and then during the comment period, 2 community colleges sent back comments. The approach to this one was a little different in that the work group is recommending a new course. This was done to align the courses with the time periods covered by the 2 U.S. history and the Mexican American courses that already exist in the ACGM. So when the African American history group took the discussion up, they had to make a decision, And one was, what approach will we take to develop a single course? Well, number one, the way it would be a topics course. And we discourage topics courses in the ACGM because in transfer, there's no guarantee of what the content or what the student will be bringing with them to the university. The other issue was if we were just going to do one course, then we had to pick a time period. And if we wanted to go forward with equity in regard to how the other courses are delineated, we would need a second course. And so with staff's encouragement, we said that's probably the route we should go to be able to cover the content adequately and to clarify the learning outcomes and the content, and to align with existing courses in the ACGM. So what you see is a two-course sequence of African American history, and with History 2382 actually being a new course. In the comment period, there were, the comments for history were general comments of good job, and there was also another comment from another community college. They only had 2 comments from community colleges, and we had no feedback from universities, was that they thought this was a good idea to do the sequence this way. Their only concern was maybe enrollments, but I think they kind of said we can mitigate this by how frequently we offer and never offering both courses at once, or they thought that that would help with that. So the comments from the community college were encouraging and in favor of this from the field.
Oh, thank you, Rebecca. Can I just ask, so are the prerequisites going to be added?
Just like the U.S. history and the Mexican American history, they can be standalone, but the sequencing spreads out the time period that's covered. But a student who wanted to take a Mexican American early history and then a African American late history, or mix it with U.S. history. Also, for the majors, they could take the U.S. history, and then they could take this sequence to transfer. So it actually creates more options for students.
I know that the outcomes are the same, though.
Yes, they decided, that was very purposeful. They wanted to do the same learning outcomes because it makes assessment kind of the same across the board for all the history courses. They wouldn't have to restructure how they do their assessment for history courses. So those learning outcomes are the same.
Thank you, much appreciated. We're going to first ask for a motion to approve the new course. Do I have a motion to approve?
I so move.
Thank you. Thank you. All those in favor say yay. Motion has been approved. A second motion is to approve the actual outcomes for both of these classes. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
We need a second? Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Motion has been approved. agenda item 10 kind of revisits something that this committee has talked about last year. It is basically the change of a rubric for Texas Speech Communication Association, or generated by the Texas Speech Communication Association. Rebecca, you want to refresh our memory, maybe?
Okay, if you recall, we've been talking about this, I think, for 3 or 4 meetings, and we get information and we look at information, and last year we looked at, or last May, I think we looked at the administrative arrangement for where does speech communication fall in the organizational structure of institutions. We also looked at where speech is in core, and of course, both of those decisions are institutional. It's not something we could dictate, but we looked at it anyway. The idea of changing a rubric does have a few more stakeholders than just faculty. It does involve registrars and admissions and those folks too. So we've been getting feedback from those areas. Also, we're cognizant of the fact that all community colleges now use speech. This request or inquiry, it wasn't really a request because the process for a request puts the burden of research on the institution making the request. This was merely an inquiry that we were asked by leadership to bring forward. So we did. And as we looked for more information, we found that the requesters referred to the Texas Speech Communication Association, but didn't actually get a statement from them. So we wanted to hear from that group. So I was in contact with the president of that organization, and they did have a leadership meeting right after we met in May, so we couldn't get that feedback. And they did bring it to their fall meeting. And they have a committee for universities and colleges, and they addressed it to that committee, but this was a small group of people, and what they found was that small group of people were divided, which seems to be where we're kind of spinning. So they would like to continue the discussion and maybe involve more members but also with these professional organizations, you may be more aware of this than I am about their cycles. They were between presidents too. So, you know, I worked with one all last year, and now I'm working with a new one. And they would like more time, you know, to discuss among themselves and their membership, to have a better reading on what the field thinks. And this, as you recall, I want to emphasize, is one stakeholder group for this issue. But I think they're a very important stakeholder group, and we do want to hear from them. So they do ask for more time, another year, until after their next meeting, so that they have more feedback from their membership. And also, in all of this research, there hasn't been a feeling of urgency. There's been, well, we'll see, kind of. I don't think that, you know, things are going to be drastic if we postpone another year to wait to hear from them. If they're interested in giving us feedback, I think we need to give them that opportunity. And I don't think that in terms of transfer, that this is hurting students right now. That's clearly a recognizable rubric because all the community colleges are using it, and some of the universities. So, and oh yeah, and in the last meeting, Lisa asked me to send digital copies of all the stuff we'd had before. I don't think I sent that. I don't remember if I did right after the meeting. And I didn't send it this time because I'd already sent you a bunch of information. Thought you had enough to digest. But if we retake this issue, I will send that digitally, all that information about core and organizational structures, so that we can have all the information at once.
Thank you, Rebecca. Do we know when the association is going to meet?
They meet in October, so it'll be a full year. So we might have to plan our meeting later in October to be able to get some feedback from them.
Okay, yes. Thank you. So what I suggest is we table this until the association can actually meet, discuss with, and give us some feedback. And so maybe you replan our next meeting, depending on that. All right, so we will table agenda item number 11. Okay, agenda item 12 is a staff update on Senate Bill 25. Reynold, you have an update?
All right, thank you. Yes, you're the Academic Course Guide Manual Committee, and that is, the ACGM is very important for the work at Texas, or for the Texas core curriculum. And I'm involved here as staff with core curriculum. And you may have followed the last legislative session. There was much discussion about student transfer and how to help that efforts on a statewide basis. And so ACGM and core curriculum are both pieces in that equation, which is complex. Out of the legislative session came Senate Bill 25, which is a rather large bill with several sections. And so we have a lot to do based on that, and started doing that, and will continue it for the next year. And so my goal here is to go quickly over Senate Bill 25, that you all are updated what is part of that. So in your handout, you find two sections, I believe. The first one is a staff summary of Senate Bill 25. I don't know if you also got the actual bill, which is several pages long. And then a second section is actions for Senate Bill 25. And so that is put together in parallel, going down the bill section by sections, which I will do now. So the bill is so ordered in section, and section 1 has actually two parts and both require new reporting. The first part is addressed at four-year institutions, and the second part is addressed at two-year institutions. Then for the action for the four-year institutions, they have to report going forward in 2021 courses of students that transfer into their institutions that do not get credit either for academic credit or program credit, depending if the student has a declared major, which is staying a declared major. So immediately the thing becomes more complicated, but those are the two categories. And the coding board staff has worked with quite a few stakeholders and people with knowledge and interest in this. And the idea sort of is that the information is there, but it's not necessarily easy for the four-year institutions to pull it for where it is. So that's where it's not a trivial task to get this information out of wherever it is stored and into a report. For the institutions to help with that process, the coordinating board have efforts to create reporting tools with preset, if you will, standard reasoning why a course may not be approved for academic or program credit. And so that will be then in the reporting tool, and including other reasons because some reasons may not be standard. But that is hoped to give institutions a guide how to order all this information and report it. For two-year institutions, they have to report courses that were not taken as core curriculum for students that either transferred out to four-year institutions or graduated. And in this case, we feel that that data is already reported to great extent to us, so we can help greatly with putting this report together. The missing link maybe, or the required link, is to find out which courses are core curriculum courses and which ones are not. And so some efforts are being made to maybe incorporate that with a separate data element, and how that is done, I think has not been quite established. But so this report, in effect, should be easier than the first report for the institutions. That is Section 1 of the transfer bill. Section 2 refers to the common admission application process, the Texas Common Application, and it requires an interesting thing, that students can opt in when they do their applications, that if they apply to a certain program and don't get accepted to that program, that institution then is allowed to send the application to other institutions which have the same program. And if the students allows that during the application process. And that basically requires sort of a two-step process people are working on. First, it has to be coded into the common application, and that should be done for at least for the next summer, for the next application round. And then once that is done, there has to be a mechanism found how institution send it on, which is the second step. But so people are working on that. It's involves a different division in our agency and not the one where the ACGM is housed in, so we're not directly affected by it. The Section 4 is required filing of decree plan. That's an interesting one because that was already required beforehand. It's just pulled it forward, is that earlier, made it earlier for students to file this, from 45 semester credit hour to 30. And more importantly, it also includes dual credit students. So if students have a threshold of 15 hours in dual credit, semester credit hour in dual credit, they are now required to file a decree plan. And that's sort of new for, I understand, for institutions to deal with. For this effort, we required negotiated rulemaking to create administrative code rules. That already has been done. They will be posted in the Texas Register this Friday, and you can go and look at them. And the rules are basically following the requirements of the statute, so that it should go fairly smoothly. Then we come to Section 5. That Section 5 has also two sections in it, two parts in it, A and B. The first one is recommended course sequences, and that is a new requirement for institutions to file one course sequence per program as a minimum with a coordinating board, and that will start in 21-22. So the way I see it, everybody has course sequences for their programs, but they're all in a different form. If you look at the catalogs, it goes the whole gamut how this is presented. So this will be an effort to streamline that and make it reportable to us easily, and then it can be put into some kind of technological, with technology it may be put into some kind of usable tool. And for that, we do need negotiated rulemaking, and that will happen early next year. That process hasn't started yet. The second part of the Section 5 deals with articulation agreements, and basically the Coordinating Board is not involved with that, and it's something institutions do, but it gives them permission to do this, and I see it then it's encouragement, I guess. Section 6, similarly, is for institutions only, not for the Coordinating Board. It deals with the release of student information during transfer, both from schools with dual credit, and also it allows institutions electronic sharing platform to use electronic sharing platforms which are not national sharing platforms. So that's spelled out in Section 6. And Section 7 is an important one for all the community colleges because, well, I assume also for four-year institutions, because it's funding for dual credit courses that field of study and program of study courses can be funded next to what was already fundable, like core curriculum courses or language courses or career and technical education courses. So it adds a group of courses, even though they may not be in the core, but they're in the field of study, they can be funded. And then we come to Section 8, 9, and 10. They go together and they address issues of the core curriculum. Section 8 introduces a new concept, that of meta-majors. The meta-major is a collection of programs of study or academic disciplines that share common foundational skills. And Section 9 tasks the Coordinating Board to form a committee to study how meta-majors can be incorporated into the core curriculum. And on that page from the summary, the staff summary, you see there are 8 meta-majors delineated in the statute, so they are given to us. And these meta-majors should be somehow grouped into 2 groups, general academic, and with that the core curriculum would be grouped into 2 areas. There's a general academic core curriculum and academic discipline curriculum. So that would be a new distinction within the core. And how the meta-majors are split up between, that's part of the task for the study to see if this can make the core curriculum more efficient and better to use for transfer. So the statute itself requires a study which should be done or must be done with a report to the legislator by November of next year, just in time for the new legislative session. and I'm sure the legislator will pick it up. And then if anything comes out of that, like all rule changes for the core curriculum have to be negotiated rulemaking, and the statute emphasizes that in Section 10. The rest of the Senate bill are some cleanups required by these changes, and also tell you about when it is effective. And we summarize that in this, on these pages. So that is the quick overview of all the work, and if you have questions, please let me know.
Thank you.
The degree plan filing rules are on the Texas Register now for comment. So you would go to the Texas Register and type in the coordinating board and rules, and they'll be there. Like Ronald said, this degree planning was already in statute, but with the Senate Bill 25, they actually lowered the threshold for this, and then they required rules. So the rules are actually just going to mirror the statute, and there has already been a negotiated rulemaking. And what you'll see, if you want to make a comment on the Texas Register, this is the time to do it. I think that comment period will end around mid-November, November 17th or something. So if you're interested in those particular rules, you can find those out there now. There's also another bill, not Senate Bill 25, and I can't remember the bill number, but there are rules on the Texas Register about notations on transcripts, so that may be more of an interest for registrars and admissions folks, but it's about discipline notations or so that's another set of rules that are out there. What kind of notations do you put on transcripts if there's a problem of suspension or that kind of thing? And there will be more negotiated rulemaking, so it's maybe a good idea for you to get familiar with the Texas Register and how to look things up, because much of Senate Bill 25 requires that, and there's also different studies that are going on that will require some negotiated rulemaking.
Any questions or discussions about House Bill 25 or Senate Bill 25? There's a lot to digest.
Be a good time to
Yeah, I think so too. Okay. So the next item on the agenda, which is not on the agenda, is to break for lunch. So we'll take a 30-minute lunch break right now. Thank you. All right, let's start this afternoon session. We continue on with agenda number 13, the staff updates. Rebecca, please.
Okay, the first thing I want to bring to your attention, and you may already be aware of it, is that the SIP codes, which are part of the approval code for ACGM courses, the SIP codes are the classification of instructional programs that the Department of Ed, U.S. Department of Ed, has to kind of follow statistically education programs in the U.S., but we also associate it with courses and degree programs here on our functions with data. So there are going to be changes to those, and they do an overhaul every 10 years with the Department of Ed, and so we're just switching programs over if their SIP has changed, and there will be communication between the coordinating board and those institutions which programs are impacted. But there may be some courses in the ACGM that will have those SIP code changes. And I usually put a list of changes that are occurring in the PDF, list of changes. And so this will be in that list. So if there's some courses, I'm not even sure at this point if there's going to be any courses, but you'll have to, it'll create an error when you turn it in for funding if you're not consistent with the ACGM for the community colleges. So I will make a list if those changes impact any courses. So this, I think it's supposed to go into effect for next fall. We still have time to do this. And this year is mild because they said there were only about 100 to 200 actual codes that are changing, and that seems like a lot, but it's really not. And a lot of it is in the veterinary science or veterinary medicine area, so that's a very concentrated. Not everyone has those programs. So hopefully it won't have a big impact. If you want to look at the ones that are changing, I've given you the web address for the Department of Ed, and then also the coordinating board will be sending information to institutions about this. Any questions about that? Okay, the second thing that I was going to talk about was just an update on fields of study. They're there, the ones that have been approved, and their effective date, and the ones in progress. So these are already in place at this point. And the name of the contact for field of study is Alan Mickey. And I've provided that information to you as well.
Thank you for the information. Next is Kyla Torre that will discuss the Open Educational Resources initiatives.
Hi. Is that working? Okay, yeah. Hi, everybody. So I'm going to talk about what we're doing at the coordinating board in terms of open educational resources. I'm going to start with just some basic information about what OER is and why we think it's important. So according to statute, open educational resources, it's a teaching, learning, or research resource that's in the public domain or has been released under an intellectual property license that permits the free use, adoption, and redistribution of the resource. Basically, they're resources that have copyright licenses that allow for reuse, remixing, with attribution to the original author, usually. So usually they have Creative Commons licenses, and that there are a variety of those, but allows for people other than the original author to use the resource as they see fit, basically. So why do we think these are important? We think they have benefits for students and for faculty. Certainly the cost of textbooks has become quite high in recent years, and open educational resources are often free, not always, but often free, and certainly mostly less expensive than a traditional textbook. They're accessible in that they're usually digital, and so they're available to students from the first day of their class. And they're also, the research that's come out has said that there's improved educational outcomes associated with using open educational resources because of these reasons of accessibility and the fact that they can be adapted for particular courses and for the learning outcomes specific to those courses. For faculty, we think that using OER speaks to academic freedom in that it allows faculty to engage in the 5 R's which are here, so they can use the content, they can remix the content, they can change the content, redistribute the content, and just as long as there's attribution to the initial author. And so basically OER allows faculty to really create resources for their courses that are specific to the needs of their students. And so we think that that has a lot of benefit. There's been a lot of interest in OER in the legislature in the past couple of sessions, so I'm going to go over a couple of things that, that affected us and might affect you. I'll talk about Senate Bill 810, which was during the 2017 session, and then House Bill 3652, which was just in this past session. So Senate Bill 810 established the OER grant program, which is a grant program for faculty. The grants are distributed directly to faculty to encourage them to use OER in their courses. We did one round of grants already and gave $8,000 to faculty who used OER, who agreed to either adapt, or create OER for one course, and then $16,000 for multiple courses. And again, these grants go directly to faculty members. They don't go through the institution. That's part of the statute. So there's sort of a stipend for faculty to compensate for the time and effort that they put into creating or adapting OER for their courses. In the first round of grants, it was only core curriculum courses that were eligible. So we had 41 applications, and we gave 15 faculty members grants. We announced the grant awards in October of last year, and the grant period is quite long because faculty are required to teach the course with OER 4 times within the grant period, so it ends in August of 2021.
Kyla, I just wanted to point out to the committee that these were ACGM courses.
They were. All of them were ACGM courses.
That was part of the specifications in the grant, is that correct?
It was part of the priority projects part of the RFA, so faculty got additional points on their application if they applied to do ACGM courses, and all of the faculty who got grants ended up doing ACGM courses. Yeah. So the list of grantees from this most recent grant period is here. It's also online, but you can see that there's a good mix of 2-year and 4-year institutions, and it's quite a variety of different courses that were given grants. So we are going to have another round. We were appropriated more funding in this last legislative session. So we will have another RFA posted probably in January of next year. You will be able to find more information here. I realize that you don't get the links in your paper copy, but if you go to our website and search for open educational resources, you should come across the OER grant program website where there will be information. If you go to our website and go all the way down to the bottom and click on the little thing that looks like an envelope, then you can sign up for e-updates and get grant information that way, and it will come directly to your mailbox. And then there's another website that just has a list of all the coordinating board grant opportunities. So if there are others that you're interested in, get it that way. So we're planning on publishing, as I said, the RFA in January of 2020. The deadline, tentative schedule right now is for the deadline for applications to be in March, to announce the grant awards in June, and then the grant period would end in August of 2023. Again, it would be very similar in that faculty would be required to teach the course 4 times during the grant period. At this point, the RFA is in draft mode, so I can't speak to exactly what courses will be eligible, but I think we are expanding it past core curriculum at least a bit. Yeah. Okay, and then HB 3652 from this year is the OER Repository. So part of Senate Bill 810 from the 2017 was a feasibility study about the possibility of creating a state repository for OER, a digital repository, and that report that came out of that study stated that it would be A, good idea, and B, that we should not probably create it from scratch, but we should use an existing educational resource repository to create a Texas-specific site, because there are lots of them that already exist, and it would be more cost-effective to sort of tag on to something that already exists. So the statute says that the coordinating board will contract with one of these existing educational resource repositories to create a Texas-specific web portal, and that it should link to various other repositories. The grantees from the OER grant program will be required to upload or link their resources within the repository. That'll be part of the requirements of the grant. And all of the first round grantees have agreed to do that as well moving forward once the repository is established. So it's supposed to be, according to statute, searchable by course or learning outcome, program or field of study, marketable skills, college readiness, and then other topics as we determine. So that's in the works right now. And it will be up and running by September 1st of 2020. So there will be a request for offer to procure bids for the repository that should be posted very soon. It says fall. Oh, it doesn't say fall. Well, it used to say fall of 2019, which is now. So it should be coming very soon, and that it'll be posted on the Electronic State Business Daily, and then on the THECB website, and we'll, procure bids from a wide range of vendors, and then decide who is able to do it most effectively, and go that way. So there's the direct website for the grant program. There's also, the grant program also has a email box that if you have questions about it, that goes directly to me. So you can also email me directly. My email's there. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Any questions? Which faculty are eligible for this at any rank?
That's a good question. Yes, they have to be full-time faculty, and they have to be from public universities. But anyone who's employed full-time at a public university is eligible.
It does include community colleges too, right?
It does, sorry, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sorry, yes. Definitely includes two-year and four-year institutions, yeah.
I have one question regarding this, or maybe a comment more so than a question. So there is a repository when you get them done, right, to put them in. If there is, I think it could be helpful if there were a place where we could go to see if there were people already working on a particular project, or something either to pair up to because if it's going to be for the state, right, and Texas Tech is working or in need of something maybe that we're working on, then it would be nice to be able to partner. But to find that out kind of happens just by chance from talking. So if there is a way to mesh that and know who's working on what. I know we're working on 2 very large projects in our math department right now at Texas A&M. And so getting input from either, other institutions that may want OER for their business math courses, then right now would be the opportunity to provide that for us. So more of a comment than a question.
Sure. So the repository, again, everything's in draft mode right now, but we're looking at putting some ideas in there about authoring tools and collaborative authoring through the repository. So hopefully that would help to address some of that. Yeah.
Any other comments? Very good. Thank you, Kyla.
Thank you.
The last item on the agenda is to discuss the future work of this committee. Essentially, we'll have another meeting in late spring, most likely. And at that meeting, we will most definitely do the annual review of the course enrollment and all of that entails. So please be there and participate in the discussion. I believe Rebecca is going to send us a poll to decide which date we're going to be available. Any items of discussions you guys want to address at this point? All right, well, going to make a motion to adjourn. Thank you.